Businessman mocks humble translator, unknowing she speaks 15 languages fluently. Richard Patterson laughed too loudly as he pointed directly at the young woman seated in the corner of the meeting room. His laughter echoed off the walls of the 30th floor of the office building in New York, where the most important meeting of his business career would take place. That's when he decided to publicly humiliate Christine Miller, the translator hired for that Tuesday morning. She nervously adjusted her headphones as he gestured toward her. "Look who's here to help us today," Richard said, still laughing. "I bet this one doesn't even know how to conjugate verbs properly, let alone translate million-dollar contracts." Christine felt her face grow warm, but kept her eyes down. Her hands trembled slightly as she organized the papers on the table in front of her. Around her, the other executives laughed awkwardly, unsure how to react to their boss's inappropriate comment. "Mr. Patterson, perhaps we should begin," suggested Monica, his personal assistant, trying to diffuse the situation. "Relax, Monica. I'm just making sure our little translator here is ready for the heavy lifting," Richard continued, clearly enjoying himself. "Where did you study again, sweetheart? One of those mall language schools?" Christine took a deep breath before answering softly, "I graduated from Columbia University, sir." "Oh, of course. Columbia?" Richard clapped sarcastically. "And how much do you charge per hour? Must be cheap, right?" Judging by the look, he made a dismissive gesture toward Christine's simple attire. She wore a beige blazer bought from a department store, black dress pants, and a light blue shirt. Nothing extravagant, but clean and professional. The problem was, Richard was used to translators who charged exorbitant fees and dressed like executives. What Richard didn't know was that Christine Miller was fluent in 15 languages and worked for that outsourced company only because it was 2 blocks from Mercy Hospital, where her 72-year-old mother was undergoing treatment for a serious kidney condition. "The meeting will start in 5 minutes, Monica announced, checking her watch. "The Japanese investors have arrived." "Perfect," Richard said, straightening his tie. "I hope our translator can at least understand when they say yes or no. Not too complicated, right, Christine?" She nodded silently, fighting back the tears threatening to spill. She needed this job. The money she'd earned that morning would help pay for part of her mother, Mrs. Helen's treatment. Christine had woken up at 5 a.m. to stop by the hospital before work. Mrs. Helen was weaker, and the doctors had increased the frequency of her dialysis sessions. Each session cost a fortune, and the insurance didn't cover all the necessary procedures. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. The meeting room door opened, and 3 men in dark suits walked in. The leader of the group was Hiroshi Tanaka, a Japanese investor Richard had been trying to impress for months. With him were his personal translator and an assistant. "Mr. Tanaka, welcome," Richard said, bowing exaggeratedly in a poorly executed attempt at a Japanese greeting. Hiroshi Tanaka nodded politely, but Christine noticed a slight look of discomfort on his face. She recognized that expression. She had spent 2 years in Japan during her university studies and knew that exaggerated bows from foreigners often caused unease. "Please, have a seat," Richard continued in English, gesturing broadly as if speaking to someone who struggled to understand. "We have very good business for you today." Christine immediately noticed the grammatical errors and forced pronunciation, but said nothing. She had only been hired as backup, in case Mr. Tanaka's personal translator had any issues. "Thank you, Mr. Patterson," Hiroshi replied in perfect Portuguese, much to Richard's surprise. "I speak Portuguese. I studied in the United States when I was young." Richard was momentarily flustered, but quickly recovered. "Ah, how wonderful. Still, it's always good to have our translator here, just in case we need something more technical." He glanced at Christine with an air of superiority. "Though I doubt she'll understand the terms we'll be using today." Christine felt a sharp pang in her chest. It wasn't just the humiliation. She knew that if Richard kept treating the investors with such condescension, the deal could fall apart. And she needed the money. The meeting began with Richard presenting his international expansion project. He spoke too fast, used slang that made no sense in English, and worst of all, cracked jokes that clearly went over the Japanese investors' heads. "So, Mr. Tanaka, what do you think?" "Good investment, yes?" Richard said, patting the table. Hiroshi looked at his personal translator, an older man named Mr. Sato, and they exchanged a few words in Japanese. Christine understood perfectly, but pretended to be busy organizing her papers. Mr. Sato was explaining to Hiroshi that Richard seemed unstable, that perhaps they should reconsider the investment. Hiroshi agreed, saying Richard's behavior was concerning, especially how he treated his own employee. "Mr. Patterson," Hiroshi said politely, "we'd like to review the technical documents before making any decisions." Of course," Richard snapped his fingers at Monica. "Bring the contracts, the ones in English." Monica left the room and returned minutes later with a thick folder. But when she opened the documents, her expression changed. "Mr. Patterson," she whispered in his ear, "these contracts are in Portuguese. The translated ones aren't ready yet." Richard paled. He had promised the Japanese investors that all documents would be translated into English, a matter of respect and professionalism. Small issue," he said, trying to stay calm. "The documents are being finalized." Hiroshi and Mr. Sato exchanged another glance. This time, Mr. Sato said in Japanese that this was unacceptable, that a serious company would always have documents ready in the investor's language. "Mr. Tanaka, maybe we can use Google Translate," Richard suggested, pulling out his phone. Hiroshi's expression hardened completely. Christine saw the situation spiraling and felt her chest tighten. If Richard lost this deal due to incompetence, he'd likely blame her somehow, and she couldn't afford to lose this job. "Excuse me," she said softly, raising her hand timidly. "What now?" Richard turned to her, annoyed. I could translate the documents orally if the gentlemen allow it." Richard laughed loudly, slapping the table. "You? Translate technical contracts? Sweetheart, this isn't beginner's English class. We're talking legal terms, complex contractual clauses." "I understand, sir." Christine kept her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Look, I admire your courage, but..." Richard turned back to the Japanese investors with an awkward smile. "Sorry about this. Our translator is a bit optimistic about her abilities." That's when Christine made a decision that would change everything. She turned directly to Hiroshi and said in perfect Japanese, "Mr. Tanaka, with your permission, I'd like to translate the documents simultaneously. I can guarantee the translation will be accurate and professional." The silence that followed was so deep, it felt like the air had been sucked from the room. Hiroshi's eyes widened, clearly surprised. Mr. Sato dropped the pen he was holding. Richard stood there gaping, completely lost. What did you just say to them?" he stammered. Hiroshi rose from his chair and bowed respectfully to Christine. "Your Japanese is exceptional, Ms. Miller. Where did you learn our language?" "I spent 2 years in Tokyo during my linguistics studies at Columbia," she replied, still in Japanese. "I worked as a translator for companies in the Shibuya area." Mr. Sato leaned forward, intrigued. "What kind of companies?" "Mainly automobile manufacturers and tech firms. I also did some work for the American consulate." Richard kept looking from one to the other, utterly bewildered. His expression had shifted from smugness to total confusion. What are you all talking about?" he interrupted. "Your translator is fluent in Japanese," Hiroshi explained, switching back to English, "and from what I can tell, highly competent." "Impossible," Richard shook his head. "She's just our temp." Christine felt anger rising inside her, but kept her composure. Instead, she addressed Mr. Sato in Japanese. "Would you like me to start with the initial investment clause, or prefer an overview of the project first?" "Please begin with the overview," Mr. Sato replied. "Then we can move to the financial details." Christine picked up the documents and began translating with a fluency that even impressed Hiroshi. She didn't just translate the words. She explained cultural contexts and made subtle adjustments to ensure clarity in Japanese culture. Meanwhile, Richard was having a silent meltdown. How had he spent months trying to impress these investors with his mediocre English when a professional translator was right there? "Ms. Miller," Hiroshi interrupted the translation, "may I ask what other languages you speak?" Christine hesitated. She didn't like boasting about her skills, especially after the humiliation she'd endured. Well, I speak a few others besides Japanese. How many? Mr. Sato pressed, genuinely curious. 15, fluently. This time, it was Richard who nearly fell out of his chair. 15, he repeated, incredulous. English, Spanish, French, Italian, German, Japanese, Mandarin, Cantonese, Arabic, Russian, Korean, Dutch, Swedish, and Hebrew. She listed softly. Hiroshi and Mr. Sato exchanged glances of deep respect. They knew how difficult it was to master even 3 or 4 languages fluently. 15 was extraordinary. How is that possible? Richard stammered. My mother always said languages open doors, Christine explained, a hint of sadness in her voice. She encouraged me from a young age, made sacrifices to pay for classes, study abroad. Your mother must be very proud, Hiroshi remarked. She is... Christine paused, feeling a lump in her throat. She's in the hospital. That's why I need to take any job I can get. The atmosphere in the room shifted completely. Richard finally began to grasp the depth of his ignorance and cruelty. Hospital? Hiroshi asked with genuine concern. Kidney problems. The dialysis sessions are very expensive and Christine stopped, realizing she was revealing too much. Ms. Miller, Mr. Sato said gently, would you like to continue the translation? The documents seem very interesting. Christine nodded and resumed her work. Over the next hour, she translated each page with a precision that impressed everyone in the room. She explained technical terms, clarified doubts, and even pointed out some inconsistencies in the contracts that could cause future problems. Richard grew increasingly quiet, realizing Christine understood aspects of the business he hadn't even considered. She wasn't just a translator, she was a true expert in international communication. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. And now continuing. When Christine finished the translation, Hiroshi turned to Richard with a serious expression. Mr. Patterson, I must be frank with you. Of course, Mr. Tanaka. Please, speak your mind. Your translator found 3 major issues in the contracts that could have caused serious legal difficulties for our company in Japan. Richard paled. What kind of issues? Clauses that violate Japanese foreign investment laws, terms considered offensive in our business culture, and some financial projections that don't align with our accounting standards. Christine had pointed out these issues during the translation, explaining each in detail to the Japanese team. She knew international laws because she had worked with them for years. I had no idea, Richard admitted, clearly shaken. It's understandable, Hiroshi said diplomatically. That's why competent translators are essential. Ms. Miller didn't just translate the documents, she saved us from a potential legal disaster. Mr. Sato nodded in agreement. In fact, we'd like to offer Ms. Miller an exclusive translation contract. Our company in Japan always needs skilled translators for projects in the United States. Christine's eyes widened. Really? Very seriously, the salary would be... Hiroshi mentioned a figure that left Christine breathless. It was more than she earned in 6 months of sporadic work. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Mr. Sato smiled. People with your talent are rare. Richard watched the scene in silence, beginning to grasp the magnitude of his mistake. Not only had he humiliated an exceptional professional, but he had nearly ruined his own business out of sheer arrogance. Ms. Miller, he said softly, I'd like to apologize. Christine looked at him with an expression mixing surprise and distrust. Apologize? I was completely out of line. I didn't know your qualifications, but that doesn't excuse my behavior. No, it doesn't, she agreed firmly. Hiroshi gently intervened. Perhaps we should focus on business now. Ms. Miller, when could you start with us? I need to think, she said. My mother is very ill and I can't leave New York right now. We completely understand, Mr. Sato said. We could arrange remote work with occasional in-person meetings. Family always comes first. Tears welled in Christine's eyes. For months, she had struggled to find decent work, constantly underestimated by people like Richard. Suddenly, people who barely knew her were willing to accommodate her personal needs. You do that? Of course, Hiroshi smiled warmly. Talent like yours deserves respect and consideration. The door opened, and Monica hurried in. Mr. Patterson, there's an urgent call for Miss Christine. They said it's from the hospital. Christine's heart stopped. She took the phone with trembling hands. Hello? Christine, this is Dr. Sarah. You need to come to the hospital now. Your mother has had a complication. What kind of complication? Christine's voice faltered. I'd rather explain in person. But come quickly, okay? Christine hung up the phone with a pale face. Everyone in the room could tell something was very wrong. I need to go, she said, already gathering her papers with trembling hands. Of course, go, Hiroshi said immediately. Family comes first. Thank you. Christine stood up quickly. I'm sorry I can't finish. You've already done more than enough, Mr. Sato interrupted. Go take care of your mother. Christine rushed out of the room, leaving behind a heavy atmosphere. Richard stood there staring at the door she had just walked through, finally realizing he had completely misjudged an extraordinary person. Mr. Patterson, Hiroshi said after a few minutes, we'd like to reschedule our meeting. Of course, whenever you'd like. Actually, we'd prefer to reschedule with Ms. Miller present. She demonstrated an understanding of international business that could be very valuable for all of us. Richard nodded slowly, knowing he had learned a humbling but necessary lesson. At the hospital, Christine hurried down the halls until she reached her mother's room. Mrs. Helen was awake, but looked weaker than she had that morning. Mom, what happened? My dear, Mrs. Helen smiled weakly. It's nothing serious, just a small reaction to the new medication. The doctor said it was urgent. Doctors always exaggerate, Mrs. Helen waved dismissively. How was work today? Christine sat in the chair beside the bed and told her mother everything. The humiliation, the unexpected opportunity, the job offer. I'm proud of you, Mrs. Helen said, holding her daughter's hand. I always knew you were special. I learned from you to never give up. And I hope you also learned to value yourself. You should take that offer from the Japanese. But Mom, what if you need me? Christine, you can't put your life on hold for me. I've lived mine. Now it's your turn. Don't say that. It's the truth, my dear, and this opportunity came for a reason. Take it. Christine stayed at the hospital until late afternoon. When she got home, she found a message from Monica on her phone asking her to call urgently. Christine, Monica answered on the first ring. Hi, Monica. I got your message. How's your mom? Better, thanks. It was a reaction to the medication, but it's under control now. That's good. Listen, Hiroshi and Mr. Sato left their card here. They really want to talk to you tomorrow. About the job? Yes. And also, well, they were very worried about you. They kept asking how you were. Christine felt a strange emotion. It had been a long time since anyone had shown genuine concern for her, aside from her mother. And Mr. Patterson? Monica hesitated before answering. He was really shaken after you left. I think he finally understood how wrong he was about you. And now? Now he wants to make things right. But honestly, Christine, I think you should seriously consider the Japanese offer. You deserve to work with people who recognize your worth. That night, Christine couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the conversation with the Japanese, the humiliation she'd endured, her mother's condition. Everything seemed to be changing all at once. The next morning she called Hiroshi. Mr. Tanaka, this is Christine Miller. Ms. Miller, how is your mother? Better, thank you for asking. That's good. We'd like to talk to you today if possible. Of course. Where would you like to meet? How about a cafe? Something more informal. Do you know American Coffee House on 5th Avenue? Yes, I do. What time? 10 in the morning? Perfect, I'll be there. Christine arrived at the cafe a few minutes early. Hiroshi and Mr. Sato were already there, speaking quietly in Japanese. When they saw her, they stood up politely. Ms. Miller, thank you for coming, said Hiroshi. Not at all, I should be thanking you for the opportunity. They sat down and ordered coffee. For a few minutes they talked about general matters, but Christine noticed the two Japanese men had something important to say. "Ms. Miller," Mr. Sato began, "yesterday after you left we had a long conversation with Mr. Patterson." "About the deal?" "About the deal and about you," Hiroshi said. "He told us you were hired only as backup, for a very low fee." Christine nodded in confirmation. "That bothered us deeply," Hiroshi continued. "A professional of your caliber should be earning at least 10 times more." "That's very kind of you to say." "It's not kindness, it's the truth," Mr. Sato leaned forward. "Ms. Miller, you saved a multi-million-dollar deal yesterday. You uncovered issues that could have led to devastating lawsuits. I just did my job." "You did far more than that," Hiroshi smiled. "And we want to reward you properly." He took an envelope from his inner jacket pocket. "What is this?" Christine asked. "Your payment for yesterday's work. Not what Mr. Patterson was going to pay you, but what you truly deserve." Christine opened the envelope and nearly fainted. Inside was a check for an amount equal to 3 months' salary in most jobs she could find. I can't accept this. It's too much." "It's exactly what you deserve," Mr. Sato said firmly. "And it's just the beginning." "What do you mean?" "We'd like you to consider not just working with us, but a long-term partnership," Hiroshi explained. "Our company is expanding operations in the United States, and we need someone who understands both cultures and business." "What exactly would that entail?" "You'd be our Director of International Relations for Latin America. High fixed salary, project bonuses, and complete flexibility to care for your mother." Christine fought back tears. "You barely know me." "We know enough," Mr. Sato said. "Yesterday, in one morning, you demonstrated more competence and integrity than many professionals we've known for years. Besides," Hiroshi added, "our company values family. We understand your mother is a priority, and we respect that. Can I think about it?" "Of course. Take all the time you need." Christine tucked the check into her purse, still stunned by everything happening. "Ms. Miller," Hiroshi said, "may I ask a personal question?" "Of course." "How did you come to speak 15 languages? It's extraordinary." Christine smiled for the first time in days. "My mother always said each new language is a new life. When I was little, she worked as a cleaner at an international hotel. She'd come home with stories about guests from different countries." "How fascinating." "She said, if I learned to speak to people in their own language, I could work anywhere in the world, so she saved every penny to pay for my lessons." "Your mother is a very wise woman." "Yes, and very brave too. She raised 3 children alone after my father left us. She always put our education first." Mr. Sato and Hiroshi exchanged a look of respect. "Where are your siblings now?" Mr. Sato asked. "My older brother is an engineer in Boston. The youngest is finishing medical school at MIT. We all got scholarships because of the languages our mother encouraged us to learn." "Remarkable." "My mother always said investing in education was the only real inheritance she could give us." "And she was right," Hiroshi said. "Ms. Miller, I'd like to meet your mother if she's willing." "Meet my mother?" "Yes. People who raise children like you deserve our personal respect." Christine was moved. No one had ever asked to meet Mrs. Helen before. She'd be honored. "Then it's settled. When she's feeling better, we'd like to visit her." When they left the coffee shop, Christine felt as if she were living a dream. In less than 24 hours, her life had completely changed. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. On her way home, she stopped at a pharmacy to buy her mother's medicine. For the first time in months, she didn't have to count and recount her money to make sure it would be enough. When she got home, she found a message on the answering machine. It was from Monica. "Christine, it's Monica. Mr. Patterson would really like to speak with you. He's truly sorry. If you could call back, I'd appreciate it." Christine hesitated before returning the call. Part of her wanted to ignore Richard Patterson forever, but another part, the part her mother had taught about forgiveness and second chances, made her pick up the phone. "Monica, it's Christine. Christine, I'm so glad you called. Mr. Patterson is here and would really like to speak with you. About what? He wants to apologize properly. And, well, he has an offer for you too. What kind of offer? It's better if he explains it himself. Can I put him on? Christine took a deep breath. Go ahead. Christine, Richard's voice sounded different, more humble, less arrogant. Hello, Mr. Patterson. First, I want to apologize again. Not just for what I said yesterday, but for how I've treated you from the very beginning. Thank you. And second, I'd like to make you an offer. I know the Japanese made a better proposal, and you should take it. But I'd like to hire you for some specific projects whenever you have time. What kind of projects? I have other pending international deals. After yesterday, I realized I need a real translator, not apps or amateurs. Christine was surprised. She hadn't expected humility from Richard. And what exactly would my role be? Translator and international business consultant. You clearly understand things I don't. Mr. Patterson, can I be honest? Of course. You humiliated me yesterday in a way I'll never forget. It wasn't just rudeness. It was cruelty. Richard was silent for a few seconds. You're right, and I have no excuse for it. Why did you do it? Honestly? Because I've been going through personal and professional struggles, and I took it out on you. It's not an excuse, just the truth. What kind of struggles? My company has been in crisis for months. I'm losing contracts, losing clients. When I saw a young translator in simple clothes, I automatically assumed she couldn't be competent enough to help me. That's prejudice, Mr. Patterson. I know, and it was a hard but necessary lesson. Christine considered his words carefully. If I agree to work with you occasionally, a few things need to be clear. Go on. First, respect. Always. No matter how you're feeling or what pressures you're under. Agreed. Second, my fees will be fair. I won't accept being paid like a beginner anymore. Fair. And third, if I see you treating other employees the way you treated me yesterday, our agreement ends immediately. I understand, and I agree to everything. Then we can discuss specific projects in the future. Thank you, Christine, truly. After hanging up, Christine sat on the couch in her small living room and tried to process everything that had happened. In 2 days, she had gone from complete humiliation to having 2 solid job offers. She picked up the check Hiroshi had given her and looked at it again. With that money, she could pay for several dialysis sessions for her mother and still have some left for other needs. In the afternoon, she went to visit Mrs. Helen at the hospital. She found her sitting on the bed reading a book. How are you feeling, Mom? Much better. And you? How was your meeting with the Japanese? Christine told her everything. The check, the job offer, the conversation with Richard, the possibilities that were opening up. I'm proud of you, said Mrs. Helen, holding her daughter's hand. You always said studying languages would open doors. And it did. But what matters most is that you kept your dignity yesterday, even when you were humiliated. Sometimes it was hard. It always is. But a person's character shows exactly in those difficult moments. Mom, with this money, I can pay for your treatments without any trouble. Christine, I want you to accept the Japanese offer. But what if you need me? I'll need you to be happy and fulfilled in your career, not sacrificing it for my sake. Are you sure? Absolutely. It's your time to shine, my dear. That night, Christine called Hiroshi. Mr. Tanaka, I've made my decision. And what is it? I accept the offer, with one condition. What is it? I'd like to include a clause in my contract that allows me to do charity work, free translations for people who can't afford it. That's very noble of you. My mother always taught me that when we're given a gift, we should share it. We completely agree. In fact, our company has social responsibility programs you could lead. That would be perfect. Then it's settled. Welcome to the team, Ms. Miller. In the following months, Christine's life changed drastically. She began working as Director of International Relations for the Japanese company, with a salary that allowed her not only to care for her mother, but also to help her siblings and even save. Hiroshi and Mr. Sato kept their promise to meet Mrs. Helen. They brought flowers and spent an entire afternoon talking with her about American and Japanese culture. Mrs. Helen was charmed by the two men's manners and respect. "Your daughter is an extraordinary person," Hiroshi told Mrs. Helen. "She's always been special, but it took time to find people who recognized that. The world needs more people like the two of you." Christine also began working occasionally for Richard Patterson, but always under the terms she had established. To her surprise, he met all the conditions and became a respectful, punctual paying client. "You know, Christine," Richard said during one of their projects, "you taught me an important lesson about snap judgments." "How so?" "I spent my whole life thinking I could judge people by appearance or social status. You showed me how wrong I was." "And what changed?" "Everything. How I treat my employees, how I conduct business, how I see the world." "I'm glad to hear that. And my company is growing again, largely because of the quality of work you've done for us." Christine smiled. It was good to know people could change when they truly wanted to. But the most important change happened with Mrs. Helen. With the new health insurance Christine could now afford, she began receiving treatment at a private hospital with specialist doctors. Her condition stabilized, and she started feeling stronger. "Mom, there's something I want to talk to you about." "What is it, dear?" "Hiroshi and Mr. Sato would like to hire you." "Hire me for what?" "To teach Brazilian culture to Japanese employees coming to work in the United States." Mrs. Helen's eyes widened. "Me? Teach? You know this country like few others. You've lived in several cities, worked with people from all social classes and know our traditions. But I don't have a college degree. There's something far more valuable, life experience." "Do you think I could do it?" "Yeah, I'm certain of it. And the pay would be very good too." Mrs. Helen fell silent for a few minutes, processing the idea. "You know something, Christine? After all these years cleaning offices and kitchens, it would be interesting to be on the other side, teaching. So, do you accept?" "I accept. But only if you help me prepare the lessons." "Of course I will." And so began a new chapter in both their lives. Mrs. Helen became a beloved teacher among the Japanese employees who adored her stories about the real United States, far from stereotypes. Christine, in turn, specialized in international business and began to be sought after by companies from various countries. Her reputation as a translator and consultant grew quickly. A year after the humiliating incident in the meeting, Christine was organizing her own translation and international consulting firm. Hiroshi and Mr. Sato were her first investors. "Ms. Miller," Hiroshi said during the office opening, "do you remember what you told me the day we met?" "About what?" "About your mother teaching you that each language is a new life." "I remember." "Well, you didn't just live multiple lives through languages. You also transformed the lives of many people around you." Christine looked around her new office. She had hired 5 employees, all young talents who, like her, had been underestimated in other companies. "You know what makes me proudest?" she said to Hiroshi. "What?" "Being able to give opportunities to people who went through what I did." "How so?" "All my employees were once humiliated or underestimated in other jobs. Here they get the chance to show what they're capable of. That's beautiful. It's what my mother always taught me. When you rise, you bring others with you." That night, Christine and Mrs. Helen had dinner together at home, as they did every night since her mother's health had stabilized. "Mom, thank you." "For what, my daughter?" "For everything. For teaching me languages, for teaching me dignity, for teaching me to never give up." "You don't have to thank me. I just did what any mother would do." "Not every mother, Mom. You sacrificed your own life so we could have opportunities. And it was worth every sacrifice. Look how far you've come." "How far we've come," Christine corrected. "This is ours, not just mine." "Christine, can I tell you a secret?" "Of course." "That morning when you came home from the hospital crying because you'd been humiliated in the meeting, I prayed. I asked for something good to come out of that awful situation. And it did. It did because you held on to your dignity. If you had reacted with anger or given up, none of this would have happened. You taught me well. What I taught you was just the foundation. The rest was your own doing." 3 years later, Christine's company had become one of the most respected in the field in the United States. She maintained contracts with companies from 15 countries and had 30 employees. Mrs. Helen continued teaching American culture classes and had become a minor celebrity among foreign executives in New York. Her courses always had a waiting list. Richard Patterson had also prospered. Following Christine's advice and example, he transformed his company into a more respectful and inclusive environment. His business flourished like never before. "You know, Christine," he said during a visit to her office, "sometimes I think you saved me." "How so?" "If I had kept going that way, arrogant and disrespectful, I would have lost everything. You showed me there's a better way to do business." "I'm glad you learned, and now I want to give back in some way." "You don't owe me anything." "Yes, I do. I want to create a scholarship fund for young people to learn languages. Would you manage it?" Christine was moved. "Really?" "Absolutely. I'd call it the Mrs. Helen Foundation in honor of your mother." "Richard, this is wonderful. It's the least I can do." The Mrs. Helen Foundation became a reality, and within a few years, it had funded the education of hundreds of young people from underprivileged families. Many of them were later hired by Christine's own company after graduation. One Monday morning, 5 years after that humiliating meeting, Christine was in her office when she received an unexpected call. "Christine Miller?" "Yes, speaking." "This is Charles Anderson from the International Chamber of Commerce. We'd like to invite you to a very special event." "What kind of event?" "We're honoring young entrepreneurs who turned their adversities into opportunities for others." "And I'm being honored?" "Yes. Your story reached us through several international executives who work with you." "What an honor." "The ceremony is next week. We hope to see you and your mother as our special guests." On the day of the ceremony, Christine was nervous. She had never been publicly honored before. Mrs. Helen, now 77, beamed beside her daughter. "My dear," she whispered, "your father would be so proud if he could see this." "You think so?" "I'm certain." The ceremony's host began telling Christine's story. "Our next honoree turned public humiliation into a company that has employed hundreds and educated thousands. Please welcome Christine Miller." As Christine took the stage, she saw familiar faces in the audience. Hiroshi and Mr. Sato had come all the way from Japan just for the event. Richard was there with his family. All her employees had come to support her. "When I received this invitation," Christine began, "my first reaction was surprise, because I haven't done anything extraordinary. I simply used the tools my mother gave me: education, respect, and perseverance." The audience applauded. 5 years ago, I was a freelance translator, struggling to pay for my mother's medical treatment. I was publicly humiliated by someone who judged me by my appearance and social standing. But that humiliation taught me something important. Hidden talents exist everywhere, in people who are underestimated every day. Today, my company employs those who were once rejected, humiliated, or overlooked elsewhere. And you know what we've discovered? These people are often the most dedicated, the most creative, the most loyal. So this honor isn't just mine. It belongs to everyone who believed we could do things differently. It belongs to my mother, who taught me that education is the only inheritance no one can take from us. It belongs to Hiroshi and Mr. Sato, who gave me my first real opportunity. It even belongs to Richard Patterson, who humiliated me, but later had the humility to recognize his mistake and become an ally. The audience rose in a standing ovation. Christine saw tears in Mrs. Helen's eyes and felt that every hardship had been worth it. After the ceremony, there was a cocktail reception. Christine was surrounded by people eager to meet her, form partnerships, or hear more of her story. "Ms. Miller," Hiroshi approached with a smile, "do you remember what I said the first day we met?" "About what?" "That people like you are rare." "I remember." "Well, now I can add, people like you aren't just rare, they're transformative." Later, when everyone had left, Christine and Mrs. Helen were alone in the car on their way home. "Mum, can I ask you something?" "Of course, dear." "Do you regret anything? All the sacrifices you made for us?" Mrs. Helen thought for a moment before answering. You know what I regret most? What? Not believing in myself enough. I spent my whole life thinking my role was just to open doors for you all, when I could have walked through some of those doors myself. But you did walk through them. At 72, you became a teacher. How many people can say that? That's true, Mrs. Helen smiled. Maybe it's never too late to start. It never is, Mom. You taught me that too. When they got home, Christine went to check her emails on the computer. There was one that made her smile. It was from an 18-year-old girl from a small town in the countryside who had received a scholarship from the Mrs. Helen Foundation to study languages. She wrote that she had always dreamed of becoming a translator, but her family couldn't afford the courses. Thank you for believing in me before even knowing me, the message said. I promise I won't waste this opportunity. Christine replied right away. This opportunity is yours because you earned it. Now just chase your dreams and remember, each new language is a new life. She closed the laptop and went to bed, thinking about how quickly life can change. 5 years earlier, she had been humiliated in a meeting room. Now she was helping hundreds of young people achieve their dreams. In the next room, she heard Mrs. Helen talking on the phone with one of her grandchildren, telling them about the evening's ceremony. Your aunt is a very special woman, she was saying. But do you know what makes her truly special? It's not the fact that she speaks 15 languages or runs a successful company. It's that she never forgot where she came from. Christine smiled in the darkness. Her mother was right, as always. Success had changed many things in her life, but it hadn't changed who she was inside. The next morning, Christine woke up early and went to the office. She had an important meeting with a Chinese delegation interested in expanding business in the United States. When she arrived, she found a surprise, a bouquet of flowers on her desk with a card. Thank you for teaching me that respect is built, not demanded. Richard. She smiled and placed the flowers in a vase. Then she called Monica, who now worked as an administrative manager at Richard's company. Monica, it's Christine. Hi, Christine. How was the ceremony last night? Wonderful, and thank you for the flowers. That was Richard's idea. He was really moved last night. How so? He said seeing you honored reminded him of how he almost missed the chance to meet an amazing person because of pure prejudice. And how is he now? Different. Very different from the arrogant man I met 5 years ago. People can change when they really want to. They can, and you were a big influence on that change. That afternoon, during the meeting with the Chinese delegation, Christine remembered how intimidated she had felt during that first meeting with the Japanese. Now she handled international negotiations with ease and confidence. Ms. Miller, said the leader of the Chinese delegation in Mandarin, we're very impressed with your company. Thank you, she replied in the same language. We put great care into every project. We'd like to propose a long-term partnership. We'd be honored to review your proposal. After the Chinese delegation left, Christine stayed alone in the office for a few minutes, reflecting on the journey she'd taken. Her phone rang. It was Mrs. Helen. Sweetheart, can you pick me up from the language school? Of course, Mum. Is everything okay? Nothing serious. I just want to talk to you about an idea I had. Christine went to get her mother and found her chatting excitedly with some young students. So what's this idea, Mom? I want to write a book. A book about our story, about how a simple family can go far through education and perseverance. You want to write our biography? Ours and so many other American families who fight every day to give their children better opportunities. Christine was moved by the idea. I think it's wonderful, Mom. Can I help? Of course, but the book will be signed by both of us. You don't have to. Yes, I do. This story is ours, not just mine. They spent the following months working on the book during nights and weekends. Mrs. Helen dictated the memories, and Christine wrote and organized the text. The book, titled Each Language, A New Life, was released a year later and became an unexpected success. Many people identified with the story of struggle and perseverance. During the launch, Christine took the stage at the packed bookstore alongside her mother. This book, she said, is for everyone who has ever been underestimated, humiliated, or ignored. for all the mothers who make sacrifices for their children, for everyone who believes education can transform lives. But most of all, Mrs. Helen continued, taking the microphone, it's to show that it's never too late to start over and never too early to dream big. The audience gave a standing ovation. Among those present were Hiroshi and Mr. Sato, who had come especially for the launch, Richard and his family, and dozens of young people who had been supported by the Mrs. Helen Foundation. After the event, a young woman approached Christine. "Ms. Miller, my name is Amanda. I received a scholarship from your foundation. It's so nice to meet you, Amanda. How are your studies going?" "Great. I already speak 4 languages and plan to work as a translator too." "That's wonderful. Can I ask you something?" "Of course. How did you find the strength to keep going when everything seemed so hard?" Christine looked over at Mrs. Helen, who was signing books for other readers. "I remembered my mother's words. Each language is a new life. Every time I learned something new, I felt like I was opening up another possibility for the future." "And does it really work?" "It does. But the most important thing isn't the languages themselves. It's the mindset of never stopping learning." "Thank you. I'll remember that." As Amanda walked away, Christine thought about how rewarding it was to inspire others the way her mother had inspired her. At the end of the night, as they packed up the remaining books, Mrs. Helen turned to Christine. "My daughter, do you know which moment makes me proudest of our whole story?" "Which one?" "It's not when you were honored, or when you started the company, or even when the book became a success." "Then what is it?" "It was that morning, 5 years ago, when you came back from that meeting humiliated but didn't give up. When you kept your dignity, even though you were treated with disrespect." "Why that moment?" "Because that's when I knew all the lessons I tried to teach you had truly worked. You had become the strong woman I always dreamed you'd be." Christine hugged her mother, feeling all the emotion of those years of struggle and victory. "Thank you, Mom, for everything." "You don't have to thank me. Seeing you happy and fulfilled is the greatest gift I could ever receive." Today, 10 years after that life-changing meeting, Christine Miller owns one of the largest translation and international consulting firms in the United States. Her company employs over 200 people and has offices in 5 countries. Mrs. Helen, now 82, remains active, teaching and giving lectures. Her book has been translated into 12 languages and is used as teaching material in women's entrepreneurship courses. The Mrs. Helen Foundation has provided scholarships to over 5,000 young people. Many of them have become translators, diplomats, teachers, and entrepreneurs. Richard Patterson completely transformed his company and his leadership style. Today, he is one of the most sought-after speakers on humanized leadership and business ethics. Hiroshi and Mr. Sato remain close partners of Christine. Your company in Japan has become one of the largest in Asia, and they always credit part of their success to the lessons in dignity and perseverance they learned from her. On a sunny Friday afternoon, Christine was in her office reviewing proposals when her secretary announced an unexpected visitor. "Christine, there's a young woman here who says you inspired her to study languages. She's nervous, but insists on speaking with you." "Of course, send her in." The young woman who entered was shy, dressed in simple but clean clothes. She reminded Christine of herself years ago. "Ms. Miller, my name is Julie. I saw you on television and read your book." "That's wonderful, Julie. How can I help you?" "I'm finishing high school this year and dream of becoming a translator, but my family can't afford language classes." "I understand. Have you tried applying for a scholarship from our foundation?" "I did, but there's so much competition." "I didn't get one." Christine looked at the young woman and saw determination in her eyes, the same determination she herself had once had. "Julie, do you speak any languages besides English?" "Basic English, which I learned on my own online, and a little Spanish." "How did you teach yourself?" "By watching movies with subtitles, reading foreign websites, and talking to people in online games." Christine smiled. The girl reminded her of her younger self, finding every possible way to learn. "Julie, how about this? I'll create a special scholarship for you, but in return I want you to promise me one thing." Anything. When you graduate and get a good job, you'll help another young woman like yourself study languages. I promise. Then it's settled. Welcome to the Mrs. Helen Foundation Scholarship family. Julie began to cry with emotion and joy. Thank you, Ms. Miller. I promise I won't let you down. I know you won't, and remember, each new language is a new life. After Julie left, Christine reflected on the circle of life. She had been helped when she needed it most, and now she could help others. It was exactly what her mother had envisioned. That evening, during a family dinner, she told Mrs. Helen about Julie. "You did the right thing, my dear," her mother said. "That girl reminds me of you at her age." I thought so too. And do you know why? Why? Because she has that spark in her eyes, the kind that won't give up, no matter how many obstacles come her way. You've always been able to recognize that in people. It's a gift I developed raising you. I learned to see potential where others only see difficulties. Christine smiled, thinking about how her mother's wisdom still guided her after all these years. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "If you could go back in time and change anything about that terrible meeting, would you?" Mrs. Helen thought for a moment. "No." "No?" "No, because it was from that humiliation that all the good things afterward were born. If you hadn't gone through that, you might never have discovered your true strength." That's an interesting way to look at it. Sometimes our greatest blessings come disguised as our worst moments. The following week, Christine received an invitation to speak at an international conference on women's entrepreneurship. The theme was turning adversity into opportunity. During her speech, she told her story once more, but with a new perspective. "Many people ask me if I'm angry at that businessman who humiliated me," she said to the audience of over 1,000. "The answer is no. In fact, I'm grateful to him." Murmurs of surprise rippled through the crowd. "I'm grateful because he showed me I was stronger than I thought, that I could keep my dignity even in the worst circumstances, and most of all that I could turn pain into purpose. If he hadn't humiliated me that day, I probably would have kept accepting any job for any amount. I would have kept belittling myself instead of valuing my worth. That humiliation woke me up. It made me realize I deserved more and that it was time to fight for it." The audience applauded enthusiastically. So my message to you today is, don't be afraid of adversity. It might be exactly the push you need to discover what you're truly capable of. After the talk, Christine was surrounded by people wanting to chat, ask questions, and share their own stories of overcoming challenges. An executive from an American multinational approached her. "Ms. Miller, my company is looking for someone to lead our operations in Latin America. Interested?" Christine smiled. "Thank you for the offer, but I'm very happy with my own company." "I understand. But if you ever change your mind, here's my card." Christine politely took the card, but knew she wouldn't change her mind. She had built something special, something much more than a company. It was an instrument for social change. Months later, during a board meeting at her company, one of her managers shared interesting news. "Christine, do you remember that Richard Patterson who humiliated you years ago?" "Of course. Why?" "He's trying to set up a meeting with us. Says he has an important proposal." Christine was curious. "What kind of proposal?" He wouldn't say, only that it could help a lot of people. "Schedule the meeting. Let's see what he wants." The following week, Richard arrived at Christine's office, accompanied by Monica and another man she didn't know. "Christine, thank you for seeing me," Richard said, clearly nervous. "Of course. What can I do for you?" "I'd like to introduce my partner, Dr. Frank Smith. He's an expert in corporate social responsibility." Dr. Frank introduced himself and explained the purpose of their visit. "Ms. Miller, Richard told me your story and the incredible work you do with the Mrs. Helen Foundation." "Thank you. We represent a group of business people who want to create a much larger fund, one that benefits not just young people wanting to study languages, but low-income youth in general." Christine was intrigued. "Go on." "It would be a $50 million fund, managed by your company, for scholarships in various fields, languages, technology, medicine, engineering, That's a very generous proposal. Richard insisted you should be the one to manage it, because no one understands these young people's realities like you do. Christine looked at Richard, who was clearly emotional. Why are you doing this, Richard? Because I want my children to grow up in a country where talented young people have opportunities, no matter where they're born. And because, he continued, you taught me that success without purpose is meaningless. Christine was moved by Richard's sincerity. I need to speak with my mother and my team before giving an answer. Of course. Take all the time you need. That night, Christine told Mrs. Helen everything. What do you think? I think it's the natural evolution of what we started. If it can help more young people, you should accept. But it's a huge responsibility. Christine, you already run a company with 200 employees and a fund that's helped 5,000 young people. You're ready for this. You're right. And you know what makes me happiest? What? Seeing that Richard truly changed, that he became the man he always could have been. 2 weeks later, Christine agreed to manage the new fund. The launch ceremony was a historic event, attended by business leaders, politicians, and representatives from social organizations. During her speech, Christine couldn't hold back her emotions. This fund represents much more than money for scholarships. It represents the belief that every young American deserves a chance to show their potential. It represents the union of people who could be competing against each other, but chose to collaborate for a greater purpose. And it represents proof that when we plant seeds of education, we harvest trees of social transformation. The audience rose in applause. Mrs. Helen, seated in the front row next to Hiroshi and Mr. Sato, cried with pride. After the ceremony, there was a gala dinner. Christine moved among the guests when she was approached by a young journalist. Ms. Miller, may I ask you a question? Of course. Do you consider yourself a lucky person? Christine thought about the question for a few seconds. No. I consider myself someone who knew how to recognize opportunities when they appeared. How so? Luck is when you've done nothing to deserve something good that happens. In my case, I studied, prepared myself, and kept my dignity in difficult times. When the opportunity came, I was ready. And what advice would you give to young people going through hardships? Never give up on studying, never lose your dignity, and never underestimate the power of small actions. Sometimes, a single decision can change an entire life. The interview was published on the front page of the business section of one of the country's largest newspapers. Christine received hundreds of messages from young people across the United States, sharing their own stories of perseverance. One of these messages touched her especially. It was from Julie, the shy young woman who had visited her office months before. Ms. Miller, I finished my first semester of college and now speak 3 languages fluently. I got an internship at a foreign trade company. I wanted to thank you for believing in me when I didn't even believe in myself. I promise I'll honor the trust you placed in me. Christine replied immediately, Julie, all the credit is yours. I just opened a door. You were the one brave enough to walk through it. That night, Christine and Mrs. Helen were at home, organizing the messages they had received after the article. Mom, look how many people our story has touched. It's beautiful to see, my dear. Sometimes I wonder if we deserve all this. Christine, stop that. You worked hard, suffered and persevered. You deserve every achievement. You're right. And you know what else? What? Our story isn't over yet. I'm sure there are still many pages left to be written. Mrs. Helen was right. In the following years, Christine expanded her company internationally, opened offices in other countries, and became a global reference in intercultural business. The Mrs. Helen Foundation grew and became the largest scholarship program in the United States. Thousands of young people benefited, and many now hold important positions in companies and institutions across the country. Mrs. Helen continued teaching and giving lectures, inspiring people of all ages with her wisdom and strength. At 85, she still kept a full schedule. Richard Patterson became one of the greatest advocates for inclusive education in the country. His own company transformed into a model of a respectful and diverse workplace, Hiroshi and Mr. Sato maintained their partnership with Christine, and their companies became symbols of successful international cooperation. And Julie. Julie graduated with honors, spoke 7 languages fluently, and was hired by Christine's own company. She created a department specifically dedicated to helping small businesses that wanted to expand internationally but couldn't afford expensive consulting. One Sunday afternoon, 10 years after everything had begun, Christine was organizing some old papers when she found a folder with documents from that first meeting with the Japanese. There lay the original contract she was supposed to have translated, her nervous notes, even the business card Hiroshi had given her that day. "Mom, come see something," she called. Mrs. Helen approached, wearing the new glasses she had bought. "What is this?" "Documents from the meeting that changed our lives." "Wow," Mrs. Helen picked up one of the papers. "It feels like yesterday. And at the same time, it feels like another lifetime." "It was another lifetime," Mrs. Helen said with a smile. "You were different people back then." "What do you mean?" "You were an insecure young woman just struggling to survive. Today, you're a confident businesswoman fighting to change the world." "And you?" "I was an older woman thinking my life was already over. Today, I'm an active educator, still full of dreams." Christine hugged her mother, feeling immense gratitude for the incredible journey they had shared. "You know what makes me happiest, Mum?" "What?" "Knowing our story can inspire others not to give up on their dreams. And knowing that when you rise in life, you always bring others with you," Mrs. Helen added. "Exactly." That night, Christine wrote in her personal journal, "Today marks exactly 10 years since I was humiliated in a business meeting. Back then, I thought it was the worst day of my life. Today, I realize it was the day my life truly began. I learned that our reaction to adversity defines our future far more than the adversity itself. I learned that dignity isn't something others can take from us. It's something we choose to hold on to. And most of all, I learned that when we have the chance to change others' lives, that's the only wealth that truly matters." She closed the journal and went to bed, grateful for every experience, every challenge, every victory that had brought her to this moment. The next morning, Christine woke to a call from Julie. "Christine, can you come to the office today, even though it's Sunday?" "Of course. Did something happen?" "I can't talk about it over the phone, but it's something very special." Curious, Christine got ready and headed to the office. When she arrived, she found her entire team gathered in the conference room, along with Mrs. Helen, Hiroshi, Mr. Sato, Richard, and many others who had been important in her journey. "What's going on here?" she asked, confused. "Christine," Julie said, stepping forward, "we decided to surprise you." "What kind of surprise?" "We created the Christine Miller Foundation for Education and Human Dignity." Christine was stunned. "You did what?" "A foundation that will continue and expand all the work you started," Hiroshi explained. "So even when you can't lead it personally, your mission will live on." I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Mrs. Helen interjected. "Just accept that you've made a difference in so many lives and now they want to give back." Richard stepped forward with an official document. "Christine, this foundation already has secured funding for the next 50 years. Your mission to transform lives through education will continue for generations." Christine began to cry, completely overwhelmed. "You didn't have to do this." "Yes, we did," Julie said, "because you taught us that when we're given an opportunity, our responsibility is to create opportunities for others. And now," Mr. Sato added, "we can ensure this chain of kindness will never break." The foundation's launch ceremony was a historic moment. Authorities, business leaders, young people who had benefited from Christine's programs, they were all there to celebrate not just her journey, but above all, her impact on society. During her acceptance speech, Christine said, "When I think about everything that's happened since that terrible morning 10 years ago, I realize life has a funny way of teaching us that our greatest defeats can turn into our greatest victories. But the most important lesson I've learned is that individual success means nothing if it can't be shared. True fulfillment comes when we can help others achieve their own dreams. This foundation isn't recognition for my work. It's a commitment to the future. It's a promise that there will always be an open door for talented young people who just need an opportunity. The audience rose in a standing ovation that lasted several minutes. Between applause and tears, Christine saw her own journey of resilience reflected in the faces of everyone present. After the ceremony, when everyone had left, Christine and Mrs. Helen remained alone in the empty room. "Mom, we did it." "Did what, my dear?" "We proved it doesn't matter where you come from. It matters where you're going." "And even more importantly," Mrs. Helen said, "we proved that everyone can make a difference in the world, one person at a time." "You're right. Now, I want you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll stay the humble, generous woman you've always been, even with all this recognition." "I promise, Mom. Like you always taught me, when we rise in life, we lift others up with us." "Perfect. Then our mission here isn't over yet." "Not yet. Not yet," Mrs. Helen smiled. "We still have so many lives to change." And so ends this story of resilience, dignity, and social transformation. A story that began with humiliation and turned into inspiration. A story that proves each of us has the power to change not just our own lives, but the lives of many others. Christine Miller and Mrs. Helen continue their mission to transform lives through education. The Christine Miller Foundation for Education and Human Dignity has already helped over 100,000 young people across the United States. And every day, new stories of triumph are written by young people who, like Christine, were given an opportunity and turned it into victory. Because, as Mrs. Helen always said, each language is a new life, and every opportunity is a chance to start again. End of story. Now tell me, what did you think of Christine and Mrs. Helen's story? Do you believe education can truly transform lives? Share your thoughts in the comments and let us know which part moved you the most. If you know someone who needs inspiration, share this story. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more uplifting stories.